It was supposed to be the decade that changed everything. Trillions of dollars, millions of researchers, a global technological sprint that made the space race look like a weekend project. We were told artificial general intelligence was coming, not in 50 years. Now. It is now, 2026, and the four most powerful AI companies on Earth, OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, and xAI, are all hitting the exact same wall. The word they kept using in 2023 was breakthrough. But translated from Silicon Valley into English, the plan was much simpler. Pour more data into a bigger model, run it on more chips, and call the result intelligence. And for a few years, it worked, until it didn't. Tonight we look past the keynotes to uncover the brutal reality. The era of brute force AI is over, and every single frontier model is failing. To understand the collapse, you have to understand the architecture. The foundation of every major model is the transformer, a highly sophisticated pattern matcher. For years, OpenAI treated this like a cheat code. Every time they made the model 10 times bigger, it got meaningfully smarter. This was the scaling law, but you can only get so smart by memorizing more patterns. By late 2025, the leap from GPT-4 to the GPT-5 family proved the math had broken down. Throwing exponentially more compute at the model was yielding marginal fractional intelligence gains. So if making the brain bigger stopped working, what about giving it a perfect memory? Anthropic marketed Claude as the professional standard by expanding its context window to over 1 million tokens. Feed it an entire novel, and it will remember everything. Technically, it does, but memory and recall are very different things. Independent research exposed a massive flaw, the lost-in-the-middle problem. Claude could see the beginning and the end of a massive document, but everything in the center faded like a dream you try to remember at noon. By pushing the limits of context, Anthropic introduced stochastic decay. Google saw these text-based bottlenecks and attempted a completely different route: native multimodality. Gemini was built to see, hear, and reason simultaneously. The late 2023 demo of Gemini Ultra was stunning, except it wasn't real-time. When the latency was put back into the real world, Gemini's agentic capabilities became dangerously sluggish. And finally, there is Grok. While others struggled with memory and lag, xAI plugged Grok directly into the live fire hose of X. It was supposed to be the ultimate real-time truth engine. Instead, it learned from the worst of the internet, entering a feedback loop of toxic data poisoning that forced regulators to step in. 4 different philosophies: scaling plateaus, context collapse, multimodal lag, and data poisoning. In a normal industry, when you hit a structural ceiling, you slow down, rethink, and rebuild. But walking that back isn't an option. So instead, they burn. Let's talk about the economics. Training a frontier model like GPT-4 or Gemini Ultra costs hundreds of millions of dollars, but that is a one-time sunk cost. Running the model is where the system breaks. This is the inference trap. Every single chat message, every API call, every image generation costs money in compute, electricity, and cooling. They are, in the bluntest terms, selling dollar bills for 80 cents and hoping volume will somehow save them. But volume only accelerates the energy crisis. By 2025, AI data centers were consuming electricity at a pace that forced Microsoft, Google, and Amazon to quietly restart conversations with nuclear power plant operators. They didn't just want renewable energy, they needed power that was available 24 hours a day, regardless of weather. Nuclear was the only math that fit the burn rate. This explains the desperation of the recent mega rounds. OpenAI raising billions at a $157 billion valuation. Anthropic surrendering its independence to Amazon. These aren't the fundraising rounds of confident companies scaling a proven product. These are the emergency transfusions of corporations that cannot survive without the next round closing. So let's be honest about what they actually got right, because there are things these models do genuinely impressively well. Code generation, summarizing meeting transcripts, pattern recognition in structured data. These are genuinely useful applications that are changing industries. But they are not AGI. They are not the sentient co-pilot. They are extraordinarily sophisticated autocomplete. running on infrastructure that costs more than most nations spend on education. The brute force era of AI is over. You cannot buy your way to general intelligence by stacking more parameters on the same architecture. What you are starting to see quietly emerge in research labs are smaller, specialized neuro-symbolic models. Systems that actually verify an answer, rather than just generate a statistically probable one. We are living in the most expensive moment in the history of technology. More capital has flowed into AI in the past 3 years than went into the entire internet revolution of the 1990s. And the primary output of that investment is a chatbot that sometimes makes up citations. That's not a failure of the technology. That's a failure of the story we told about the technology. The models are remarkable for what they are, but what they are is not what they were sold as. In 2026, the gap between the story and the reality is no longer deniable. The next era belongs to whoever builds something smaller, more honest, and more verifiable.